Hello, everybody.
Hello guys!
Can
It's our last day here in Havelock and look at the weather!
it's raining?
And we have a box of cup noodles which we're gonna have now for breakfast! Hot
But
noodles in the rainy weather!
but it's so loud. We don't know if you can hear this.
As it was raining outside, we are having hot cup noodles and just watch Nani eating.
It's so hot.
Catching the bus to go to the jetty.
Typical traffic jam here is about 5 cars long and takes 2 minutes to clear.
Going to get the ticket. The bus dropped us off right in front of the ticketing office. We just have to walk like a few meters and then we will get the counter where we can buy the government ticket to the government ferry for tomorrow. The rain just stopped and the colors of the water are coming out. So this is the jetty. This is the Navneet. Why do you look so happy, Navneet?
Tickets, yeah, tickets.
So tell me about it.
So we took the local bus from our hotel to here, 4-kilometer ride to the jetty. And once we got here, it was a very quick thing. There were hardly like 3 people in the queue. So we got about 2 tickets for 620 rupees each. So it's tomorrow at 2:30 that we sail from here to Neil Island, which takes 1.5 hours. This vessel is much smaller than the other one, so we'll have to see what it's going to be like. Let's wait and watch. Head back to the room.
Can we take a bus, please, instead of walking?
Why not?
So there are many shuttles here. We can go in any of them. Most of them go towards Vijayanagar and Govindnagar beach. So let's check it out. So these are all the small restaurants and small shops right by the jetty. So I remember eating at one of these shops when I came here with my parents. We were just waiting for our ferry to depart. We had like I think 2 hours of time. So we just went into one of these and grabbed our lunch. So yes, for the 2:30 ferry we can book the ticket in advance, but
There's
they have
another,
another one at 10:30
yeah.
in the morning. For that you will have to come to the jetty and then book it right then and there.
So they asked for basic details like the ID proof and where we were staying here on the island, as well as where we are going to next on Neil Island, like the literal address of the hotel.
Yeah.
They also asked us to fill up a little form with a few details and things like that, but we didn't need to verify the vaccine certificate again.
Yeah, it was
So,
a very simple process
yeah.
compared to
And
what
the queue
we
was
went
also
through.
short, just 3 people ahead of us, and it got done in like 5 minutes.
Yes.
So the easiest way to come here is to take the bus. The bus parks right outside the ticketing office. It's like 20 bucks from here again to Vijayanagar. So we are sitting in one right now, and hopefully in another 5-10 minutes it'll start, and we'll get there in like another 10 minutes. It's not like you go really far on this
It's
island.
just 4 kilometers from
Yeah.
here, so yes.
I'm just sitting down here in the center of our room, and I'm about to tell you that this is what happened. So after dinner, we came back to the room. It was around 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. in the night. And then our usual practice is, Shishira has the key, she opens the lock, then opens the door. And then we have to put in that the key chain into the little slot behind the door, which basically turns on the power supply in the room. So all the lights come on. So until then, everything is like pitch dark inside the room. And right outside our room, we have a tiny street lamp, which we keep on. So essentially, when we walked in that night, we did the same thing. We opened the key, we opened the lock, we got in. Just as we opened the door, Shishira stepped inside without giving it too much thought. And then suddenly, I don't know how, but both of us ended up looking down at the floor as the light came on, and then there it was, coiled up, uh, a pretty like dark brown black colored combination on its skin, and a scaly creature just sitting coiled over there with its head slightly high up. It looked pretty thin, it looked pretty small. It started to move away, but it moved so slowly. It was a little weird because we expect always, like in the movies when we see, or in the zoo when you see, the snakes are moving so fast. Even on the streets when you see it, it moves really fast. But this one was moving so slowly. It started to really like freak me out. Shishira did not scream. I don't know. I guess we were both so shocked that we didn't let out any very loud noises. Probably because of that, the snake slithered very slowly and then it got under the bed. For a couple of minutes, we thought, Shishira started crying because it was a little too intense. But then after that, we called the manager. The manager was also shocked. He said it rarely comes around, our room. And then he came here with one of his attendant guys. So both of them came. This guy took a stick. He came in. They checked under the bed if the snake was still there, and it sat coiled up somewhere in the back. While they were checking, they also saw that there was one pretty giant spider over there. We couldn't get that on tape, but the spider was to itself. The snake was in the other corner. So they basically took the stick, put it under the bed, and started like cleaning, basically to drive the snake out. 3 failed attempts later, finally the snake came out far enough for them to then turn the angles and take the stick and start beating it from behind. They basically didn't beat the snake, it was more to beat the floor behind the snake, because of which the vibrations that would come through would drive the snake away. So the snake slithered across, and that's when we saw how big it really was. It was about 3.5 feet long, very black brownish in color, and we couldn't identify what breed it was to check whether it was poisonous, but the manager said this probably isn't one which is poisonous. I mean, nobody's an expert here, but then it slithered out, and once it got out, they followed it until it went into the bushes, and then it got lost in the dark. It was pitch dark, it was raining mildly as well, so we couldn't really see where it went. You'd think that was it. That night we've barely slept. We were up every now and then at the smallest little noise that we could hear. We looked all around the room 2-3 times checking, and then the manager suggested that we take a towel and plug the gap between the door and the floor, which is basically the only gap that was there. We keep all the windows closed, even though one of them has a mosquito net which is poorly put on. We realized that's how the snake had entered, through the gap between the door and the floor. So we put a towel there, plugged that, and basically the whole room became really warm. But overnight, because it rained a little bit, it was not too hard to sleep in. We figured this should take care of things and no snake will enter, in the next few days. And we were still supposed to be here for a few more nights. And here comes the next day. So the next night, again, we had gone out, we came back in, and we opened the towel, everything was neat and clean inside. We entered the room. Shishira went into the restroom, and then I was just sitting here on the bed, exactly where I am. And then I was observing how, we had again put down the towel, now this time from the inside, so that we could plug the gap. And while I was just looking at the door, I realized that there was some strange looking metallic disc on the side of the door, on the inside of the room. Now, just to remind you, we're both inside the room, the door is now locked, and the room is pretty small, as you can see. That metallic disc seemed unusual because in the last 10 days that we had stayed here, I never saw anything behind the door that looked like some sort of construction over there. So I walked up closer towards it, and then I realized the disc is moving. And then this time the snake wasn't black, it was brown in color. It had a very shiny metallic texture, but it seemed a lot thinner than the older one, the previous nights. And then every time any sound was made in the room, water flowing in the bathroom, me moving around, the sound of the shutter of the camera clicking, or even for that matter the flash on the phone camera, all of that started to drive that snake further and further into the wall. And that's when I realized the gaps that we had sealed at the bottom weren't the only gaps between the outside and the inside. It turns out that there was a hole beading on the side of the door running the entire length of the frame, which was basically a hole from the outside to the inside, and there's a lot of wood, broken wood in between. It's basically supposed to have been plastered on the inside, but turns out whatever, the plastering job didn't go through very well, and that's how there were little nooks everywhere. And this particular snake had crawled in from outside and nestled itself very nicely, and because we'd been sealing our rooms, it was perfectly warm weather for it to just relax over here. We again called this guy, the manager, and said the snake is here. He said, how is that possible? How can there be one again? But I'm coming. And then he sent his guy over. And even the guy was shocked because the way the snake had nestled in, it was easily 1.5 foot higher than the floor, which is basically the same height as our bed. So it sort of freaked him out as well. The normal stick wasn't going through the how thin the wall was, the hole. So he had to get other smaller sticks, break another bamboo shoot and try to poke it in, and then it jumped out. This one was about 1.5 feet long. He said this could be a specific kind of a crate, which might just be poisonous. But again, nobody is sure. Both of these were babies, by the way. And then it slithered off, and again, with all of the beating and scaring and the sound making, this second snake as well moved so slowly, and then once it got down the patio, it got into the garden, and then very casually just kept walking across to the pathway and then crossed into the bushes. And again, light drizzle, whatever, it just felt really scary that night. And once the snake went out, we decided we'll just change the room. Then we went looking for options. There was another room further up in the garden pathway into the jungle, but that one turned out to be closer to where the forest begins. So Shishira wasn't too comfortable about staying there. The manager's room was right next door to it. So he said, I'll be there, it should be totally fine. So we asked him, like, if it's that good, have you had any snakes visit you? He very casually said he's had about 8 visitors. So that didn't help inspire any confidence. Then he offered to put us up in a room where the regular tourists stay, where snakes generally don't come. That's on the beach side. He also said, this isn't something specific to the hotel, and we totally understand that. This is the story of nearly every hotel in, the islands outside of Port Blair. We decided we'll get the little bit of the open spaces also covered. So unfortunately, because the plastering wasn't possible to do, the attenders brought some cloth, and then we plugged the gaps from the outside of the door using bamboo frames, little pieces of bamboo into all the nooks from the outside, and then on the inside we took cloth and stuffed it into every single hole over there, because tape wouldn't stick. With the amount of humidity here, it was just falling off. So we did that, and then they moved the bed, smacked that little spider out of its place. Then we had the whole place cleaned. The attenders did a really good job, so I'm pretty grateful for that. Once they did that, it was basically like a scan of the entire place to check if it's all good. And then now that there were no other insects or reptiles, they put the bed back. We had a very clean room for the night, and all of that took like 2 hours. After that night, considering we had sealed every gap, we double checked, triple checked every single gap, checked our bags to see that there are no other visitors over there, and then basically went to sleep. It's been 2 nights since. So far we haven't had any new visitors. So that's it.